Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Law and Money with attorney Douglas Oden and financial advisor Michael Allen. We're still broadcasting remotely due to the coronavirus, and we're practicing social distancing to the max. My co host Michael, good to see you, is hunkered down at his home, and I'm barricaded in my office. We will continue to discuss the coronavirus, and also we're going to discuss the legacy of the late John Lewis. We have a special guest today, a good friend of mine, a good brother, and he's also a candidate for the mayor of Oceanside, Rob Howard. Say hi, Rob.
Hello, everybody. Hey, guys. Good to see you. It's been a
Oh,
while.
all
All
right, good to see
right.
you, brother. And we will be talking with you in just a few minutes. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, on June 28th, over 115,000 Americans had died. And on July 12th, our last broadcast, that number had rose to 135,000. Tonight, as we're taping the show on July 26th, the death toll is close to 147,000. Folks, that's 30,000 people, moms, fathers, brothers, sisters, boyfriends, girlfriends, best friends, or of someone that you may have known who have died in less than 30 days. Now, after all this carnage, the president is now recommending that people wear masks. Much too little, much too late. And the only reason he did this was because he saw his poll numbers shrinking and tanking. And so he decided belatedly to jump on board and tell folks to wear a mask. Now, our other major story is the passing of Representative John Lewis. John Lewis, of course, was a civil rights icon who bled on the Edmund Pettus Bridge for voting rights, a champion for the Voting Rights Act, and seeking to preserve that right to vote for all Americans, and particularly African Americans. We will discuss his legacy with our special guest, Rob, and with Michael. But for those of you who are new to the show, and we do have some new listeners today, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been practicing law for over 42 years. I am a partner in the law firm of ODEN Green, San Diego County's oldest African American law firm. I am a former president of the California Association of Black Lawyers, a former president of the Earl B. Gillum Bar Association, which represents the interests of African American judges and lawyers in San Diego County. And for 6 years, I was president of the San Diego branch of the NAACP. My co-host is the incredible Michael Allen. Michael, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Doug, again, just really happy to be here. Just celebrated my 61st birthday yesterday.
Wow.
So,
Congratulations.
yeah, it beats the alternative. So I am very, very, very happy to be here. My background, of course, has been in financial services since 1989. When you think about the legends such as John Lewis, and I mean, wow, he's just a miracle amongst our living beings. My background started with Wells Fargo. I was the first Black or African American to go through their MBA training program. Not only was I the first one to go through, but the first one out. Former president of the Central San Diego Black Chamber of Commerce. I have a financial planning practice, Allen Financial Advisement, and I've been in the financial planning industry for the last 20 plus years. Saying all of that, I work with businesses and individuals, helping them set and achieve their financial goals. So that's me in a nutshell.
All right. Well, thank you. And our first segment of the show, we call it What's Going On, where we talk about the issues of the moment. Michael, in addition to losing Representative John Lewis, we lost another major freedom fighter, the Reverend C.T. Vivian. C.T. was a trusted lieutenant and confidant of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. He was born on July 30th, 1924, in Bloomfield, Missouri. he was the recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He was one of them brothers who did the organizing, working behind the scenes to make sure everything, including the March on Washington, ran smoothly. And we mourn his passing also.
Yes, he was part of that supporting cast where we get the Academy Award, but what happens behind the scenes, the directors, the stuntmen, and everybody else, and CT played his role to the best of his ability, and he was full of nothing but accomplishments. It was one of the words, the kind words that I heard about CT Vivian was, if you want the job done, give it to him, and he'll make sure that it gets done. So I take my hat off to him. But you go ahead, Doug. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, I look at it, we losing some of these icons. There's a few left, but they're moving on. As the preacher used to say, that they're transitioning from labor to reward. And folks labored. I mean, they gave their lives. I remember seeing old CT Vivian getting in old Jim Clark's face, that old racist sheriff down there in Alabama, and talking about trying to stop folks from integrating schools, and the sheriff punched him, knocked him down, and folks was about to flee, but hey, he got up and got right back in his face. And, nah, it ain't happening like that.
Right.
Responded to his courage. And we talk about courage these days. I mean, back in the day, when Representative Lewis and these folks were doing the freedom rides and stuff, I mean, that was definitely taking your life in your hands. Rob, let me ask you, what's the legacy? How do you look at the legacy of Representative Lewis and Reverend Vivian?
Well, for me, it's been real tough because with all of the other things that are going on, looking at their life, you just have to ask yourself, am I doing enough? I've always, you continue to ask that question. Am I doing enough? What am I doing? Because Congressman Lewis, for me, there's a few things he did. He spoke truth to power, and he let you know that it is not what they're doing. It's how you're responding to what they're doing, keeping an eye on the goal of what you're going after. And you just cannot, under any circumstances, allow other people to stop you from what your goal is. And they had a lot of reasons. They had a lot of things they could have used for excuses. But for me, it's just watching them and then looking around and asking, okay, what are we doing? How are we responding? Because we have our own challenges. Because, it's an ebb and flow. Because most of the time, the things that are done by politicians and people in the community is to stop the protests. And I just think for us, when we talk, like now I'm talking to some of the young people out here in this community that are organizing, and they are phenomenal, by the way. I'm gonna give a shout out to the young people that are saying enough is enough. But you have to talk to them about, are you looking to agree with someone to stop the protest? Or are we trying to solve the problem? It's a way to actually look at it. So for me, it's just a matter of reflection. So it's been tough. It really has been tough.
Right. And you talk about the younger people who are out there in the street. You look at the legacy of John Lewis. I mean, he was a young man. He was in his early 20s. I mean, and when he spoke on the March on Washington, I think he was 23 years old. I mean, these guys were. I mean, we were just getting out of college, age 23, and he's on the national stage. I mean, the courage that these men and women took, to put their lives on the line to, integrate. And then not only that, he moved on from being a protester to seeking elective office. And when I look at you, I see the same type of individual, because I remember me and you working with the NAACP together. We're trying to do some things in San Diego County, and now it looks, you taking it to the next level, seeking political office.
Well, it's Doug. I'll tell you, one of the things that I learned during that time. First of all, I want to let everybody know that it was really an honor and a privilege for me at that age to be able to have people I could talk to, because when you're trying to lead, oftentimes you're alone in many instances. But having that that ear was real important. And I look back and you talk about John Lewis, and I heard a story about him because, you know, people are starting to talk about some of the things that went on. You know, his speech in the March on Washington, John Lewis's speech had to be rewritten because it was too strong at first, because he was serious about it. So no, I think right now that this move is one where I've looked at the politics local, and there needed to be some change. I've been working with campaigns. We've been getting people elected, looking at an agenda that looks out for us as well as looking out for other people. And right now in Oceanside, we didn't have anybody. And I consulted with some folks, and they were like, hey man, you used to tell us don't talk about it, be about it. So what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So that's kind of how it actually got started.
Okay, well, good. We're going to get more into that a little later on in the show. We're going to talk a lot about your run for mayor and some of the issues facing Oceanside. But, you know, another big issue that's propped up on the scene is these unidentified troops, you know, that have invaded Portland under the guise of protecting some federal property. And these individuals seem to be, you know, sent by President Trump to quote unquote, you know, clear out the anarchists and agitators, but it looks like they were more like provoking a conflict. Michael, what you think about that situation?
Well, I think it's a bunch of crap, Mr. Trump. That's my first understanding. Being someone from Chicago, you know, I was a young kid when they had the Chicago riots at the Democratic Convention. And what happened during that time is that the Chicago Police Department that they sent out there to squelch some of the civil unrest were creating some unrest themselves by breaking into stores and restaurants and looting and saying and blaming the damage on the protesters. And that protesting is a First Amendment right. And so now when you send people down, these stormtroopers, as they're called, with no identification, whose job it is to protect federal property, but now Trump has these guys out in the streets and they're just snatching people up, locking them up, and doing what it is that they will. You know, I see that as one of the first steps in creating an autocracy. And I think that's Trump's ultimate goal. So my opinion of it is just purely negative at this point, 100% negative.
Now, for those who are uneducated, what's an autocracy?
That's the word that starts with A for dictator. He wants to be the single leader, the single person in charge. That's what an autocracy is, one leader.
Rob, what's your take on that?
Well, just to build on what Michael was saying, recognizing that when you do not understand the Constitution and you're used to having your way, and then other people are going to support you having your way, you're going to follow along the same lines that Hitler did in order to create that dictatorship. You lie and you tell it over and over again about what's so wrong and so bad, because eventually there's going to be, if you tell it often enough, people are going to believe it. And then you go out, and what's frustrating to me is you couple what he is doing to the fact that how many police chiefs have said anything about it? Because they're trying to say, well, they're talking about defunding the police. Well, I tell you what, you're going to need us. So it's not only him creating this dictatorship, it is the imbalance of power amongst those who want to lord over you in the community that have been silent. So the danger, the negative parts, you look at it and you see it. But what I think, because I'm always trying to find hope, if you look at Portland, there was a wall of moms. And I want people to think about that for a minute. The moms who were doing it were saying,
white mothers.
Okay. Exactly. So when it got to that, and one that hasn't been getting a lot of coverage, now they have a wall of veterans, a wall of white. I saw some, they looked brown, so I'm not really sure. They could be anywhere along the Latinx area, but they just said, no, this is not why I went and went to serve my country. This is not what I was fighting for. And so I think there is a place of hope, but what we have to recognize is if we aren't doing anything, we need to do something. Because when they come for the Black Lives Matter protest and they've done that, the next thing, they're coming for you. And that's what autocrats like to do. They're gonna come after you. So it's disturbing on so many levels, but I think we have to begin to just build up and fight back.
I have a question for you, Rob, and this is a purely hypothetical. Say you're mayor of Portland. Do you empower the police department to protect your citizens, or do you let them remain dormant?
No, you should. Here's the thing. There is an oath that they take, and it is to serve and protect the citizens and to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Not the police department, but I mean, not the federal police, but
no, I'm talking the local police department. Yes, they have an oath. When you take a position, you have a responsibility to protect and serve, to defend the Constitution. So locally, if your oath is to protect and serve the community, yes. When you saw that line of federal officers, you should have seen a line of police officers in that local community. What that would have done was, one, it would have said, yes, we are truly working to try to solve this at home. Two, we are not going to allow you to create chaos. And it also would send a message to those who were protesting that, you know what, maybe we are in this together, that we need to try to figure this out. And if you
they sent the mayor out there, the mayor got gassed.
Well, okay, I'll call that taking one for the team. But he also, because of his relationship, he was jeered, not cheered. They had negative things to say about him and stuff like that. And that's what happens when you aren't connected to your community. That's why you see this kind of stuff. This was not like a week coming. This is a long road of systemic
racism.
And
let's call it what it is.
Yeah, and it's there. And until we start attacking it, until we start saying, okay, and not just saying, okay, again, not just stopping the protest, solving the problem. That means we have to deal with anti-Blackness. And it's in these departments. And I don't care how diverse your department is, we have to understand that the moment you put that uniform on, you are no longer black, brown, or yellow, you are blue. And so they say, well, how can that officer who looked like me do that? There's a sister, and I don't remember the city she was in, 19 years on the force. There was a cop, excessive force, and she pulled him off of him saying, no, that's not what our rules say. They fired her. Fired her because she was doing what she was actually supposed to do. So people talk about good cops, you know, they say, well, no, it's a bad apple or two. Look, let me tell you something. My mama told me, pay attention to who you hang out with. Because if they doing something dirty, you dirty. And so if you're not speaking up against it, then you're an accomplice. And so
personally, I'm fed up with them saying it's just a few bad apples. I have seen too many videotapes of too many bad apples. So I think the whole barrel is contaminated or corrupt.
What about the ones you don't see?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, before video. So, it's too much of that happening now. It really puts a poor taste in my mouth. And that poor taste comes not from me being who I am, but for the people who aren't as fortunate as me, who aren't able to speak English to where the police can understand, or just really, they just get stopped for being black. And that's horrible. That is just totally unsatisfactory of what the police, and it can be white police, black police, or Hispanic police, but they have a very biased opinion of us being black, and that just really, and they gonna write it off as just a few bad apples. No, it's just a few bad apples that got caught. But as a whole, There's a lot of bad apples in there.
Well, Doug, real quick, I want to just to that point, I want to go back to when I became president in '99 of the NAACP in North County. I had been a volunteer for a while and finally became president. And one of the things we did that was quiet, and oh, by the way, some of my opponents are trying to take credit for that now. We took community organizations and worked with our police department for community policing because we had issues. But at the same time, we had gangbangers because I guess Crips and Bloods figured Oceanside was a real nice place to hang out because it was not down in San Diego and they were away from LA. But it took a while to get it going, but I'm a firm believer in the relationships are what make the difference. Right now, you see a lot of police forces and sheriffs, they have no relationship with those communities. So it becomes an occupying force. So don't tell me that it makes, that they're doing the right thing when they're basically murdering people and then saying, well, you should have done this. We watched video. It didn't matter what that person was doing. They got killed. So I think we have to rethink, and that's why the conversations with the young people have been so amazing because they don't have a problem talking about we need to rethink policing. Why are we not putting revenue in the community? Because if you look at the number of responses they have, how many of them do they need to show up with a Glock instead of showing up with a counselor? Because if I got somebody with mental illness, why do I need to send 2 police officers? If I have somebody who is having a domestic dispute, these people need counseling. They don't need you showing up, arresting people and beating people up. So I just think until we shift our thinking, man, this stuff is going to continue. Protest or no protest. So we got decisions to make.
Okay. Well, good. Well, that's a very interesting discussion. And I wanted to say before we move on to the next topic is that we cannot forget that there's a political component to these troops in Portland. It was part of the strategy of Donald Trump to scare the hell out of white folks by saying, look at these troops, look at these folks, they're going to come into your suburbs, they're going to run over. You need me to protect you from all these invading protesters, these agitators. And that's why he did it. He wasn't worried about somebody putting
fear-mongering
on a fence. He was trying to use his law and order strategy. He figured it worked for old Tricky Dick. That
it worked for me.
Got him elected. Maybe he could reprise that same strategy and attempt. But I think people aren't going for that okie doke. I mean,
no,
because there's a different strategy. And like you said, when you got moms out in front and when you got veterans out in front, that presents a different picture. And I think you're absolutely right, Rob. Had the police department acted as a shield for the protesters, that would have eliminated that whole paradigm of the police versus someone else. When police are protecting the public, you can't use the stormtroopers as saying we're protecting the public. So no, we don't need you. We can protect the public, And I think that's an important component. Now let's move on. Congress passed that multi-trillion-dollar bill to aid folks who have an unemployment, and with all this unemployment, they had unemployment insurance. They tacked on an extra $600 a month so folks who could stay home with their kids, and still, meet their rental obligations. But just like Cinderella, the clock is about to strike 12, and that chariot is going to turn into a pumpkin if they don't get this thing passed. Now, what do y'all think is going to happen if Congress, and not really the Congress, it's the Republicans, it's the Republicans in Congress. The Democrats in the House did their job. They passed $3 trillion bill. They said, look, let's keep this thing going until January. Maybe we'll have a hold on this virus by then. But in the meantime, let's not throw everybody on the streets. Just the Republicans who went on vacation, and said, well, we'll come back next week and maybe we'll have maybe $1 trillion to give you all. So what you guys think about that? You think the Republicans are playing with fire, trying to, fiddle while Rome is burning?
I definitely think they are. And here it is. I thought they were just taking the week off of my birthday. But the reality of it is this, I mean, just to be a Republican, you always, well, not you, but just to be a Republican, they like to curtail spending. They don't like to spread the wealth at all. So they definitely wanted to hold on to the money as long as possible. But now we have all of these Trump publicans, or you call them whatever you want, but they just really, Trumpist or whomever. And so now what's going on is that the money that they're releasing it to big business and big CEOs to trickle down to some of the rank and file people that go to work. And I think they're going to eventually let the money. I think I saw a headline where Mnuchin says they're meeting tomorrow to release or disperse some of the funds, but the majority of it's still going to big business. And so with that being said, how do they get it down to the little guy? Because they're going to take away some of that extra $600 that they were giving. And, the people that are on the firing lines that are really suffering from the economic effects of the coronavirus, they're the ones who really need it.
Yeah, but how about, Rob, talk about the rent moratorium. I know, a lot of folks who couldn't pay the rent and had their rents kind of deferred. You said, well, you couldn't pay it in May, you couldn't pay it in June, well, maybe in July. Now, all of a sudden, you got to pay 3 months back rent?
Exactly.
Or throw it out? How's that going to work?
See, our natural tendency on how we're taught capitalism in this country and our biases would be, oh, no, we can't do that. But here's the reality. When you give a $2 trillion tax break, that 85% of it went to the top 1%. Don't tell me the money's not there, first of all. The second piece is, so we know the money is there if we want the money, because the only time they seem to care about a deficit and deficit spending is when there's a Democrat somewhere in charge. So I'm not listening to that either. So, and the other piece that economists some economists will tell you, because some of them will tell you what they think the person that's paying for their work would want to hear. But the reality is that $600 and that unemployment went in the hands of people that were saving none of it because they needed it. And so what did that do? That gave a floor to the economy. If you want to spur the economy, what you do is you provide opportunity to those who have the least. That whole trickle down is like the exact opposite of what's going to happen, because Bezos or the Amazon guy or all those billionaires might buy 10 pair of pants in a year. But if I have 50 million men and 50 million women with the ability to buy a pair of pants or buy that same 10 pair of pants, what did I just do to the whole garment industry? And so I think we have to really, we need a paradigm shift. So those folks, not only should they get that money, because you got to go back to this rent issue, because just like them paying their rent, there's also a bunch of mortgages out there that need to be dealt with. And so the question is, how do you disperse the money? Because I think there's no question it needs to happen. And so just giving a rent moratorium does not solve the problem. Rent still due. Now it's 3 months. Did you give them a moratorium on the late fees? Because that 3 months actually might be 4.5 months, because now they're charging you late fee. So the question is, we need to deal with that, but I wouldn't do it. You remember during the 2008 crisis, they gave the banks all the money, and they decided if they were going to fix your loan. See, for me, if you're going to have a super fund, put a super fund, but you only draw down from that fund when I know you've taken care of that issue. So all these folks, and then what you do then, now I just put a bunch of most folks to work to process that. It's like in California, we don't even have enough folks processing unemployment. I know some people to this day are still in the queue since March. So we need to disperse the money. We need to figure out how we're going to disperse the money so it doesn't go, they said less than 500 people, but they told these big corporations, if you have a bunch of different sites, franchises, each one of them gets the $500 limit. That's why they got so much money. So a lot of it is, you're dealing with such big numbers. You got to take the time to make sure you do it right and push the money down as far as you can in the economy, because they're going to spend it at the local stores, the local markets. They're going to buy food. the assumption that people who are poor are crook is because those who are making the decision think like a crook. So if you are trying to do the right thing by your family, you don't even have time to deal with that. So we need to get money into their hands. We need to figure out, one, how to keep them safe, because we talk to all these folks at these grocery stores and people come in talking about their rights. So you saying you got a right to get me sick. Well, no, you don't. The American way is when we come together to work on those issues, because America's far from perfect. But at least if we're working together on something, we can get closer. You know, so for me, it's just like I just call it out, man. Give the folks the money they need to have them to deal with it. You need forgiveness on that, but not just saying, okay, we're going to bless it off and the person with the mortgage doesn't get their money. No, you make that funds available and you move that money and put these folks back to work. But the first thing you got to do is we got to bring the virus numbers down, and simply not testing won't do it. That's I don't even.
Hey, look, I heard, hey, Rob, you know, along the lines of testing, I heard that if you didn't have pregnancy tests, there wouldn't be as many kids.
It blows me away, you know. So we have to begin to push on, and we got people making calls to our legislative folks, but typically the ones in California aren't the ones we got real issue with. It's some of these other states who, by the way, all these big blue states that he's attacking, they're states that we call net negative states. So in other words, they give more money to the federal government than they get back. And those net negative states are the Kentuckys, are the Alabamas, are the Mississippis. And so we got to start calling that stuff out. And most of it is people treat politics and political information like math class. It's the teacher and about 3 of the kids in class that really enjoy that subject. Everybody else is there because it's a requirement to graduate. So we have to be able to continue to have that conversation about how this stuff works, but we got to do it in a way that people will actually listen to it. And so that's why it just blows me away. It's like, what? So I don't want to get on a rant.
All right, well, look, let's now that you're on a rant, let's talk about your run for mayor. That's what I want to talk about. You know, now if you are fortunate enough that the people of Oceanside have enough sense to elect you mayor, you're going to be the second African-American mayor in the history of Oceanside, which makes it far more progressive than good old San Diego. But let me ask you, what was the reason, or who inspired you to seek elective office?
Well, actually, it was kind of weird. What happened was, like I told you before, I worked with an organization called Flip the 49th, where our 49th congressional district, we worked to turn out low propensity voters. And so, you know, they talk about campaigns focus on high propensity voters. You voted in every election for the last 4 elections. That's a high propensity voter. But low propensity voters are young. First of all, some of them haven't had 4 elections, or people of color who feel disengaged with the process, or just a group of folks that are disengaged with the process. So in the last 4 elections, they voted 2 times or less. So in working with that, we were able to get people elected. We got them through the primary. Mike Levin got elected. Tasha Borna-Horvath got elected. We worked on some of the local cities. And so after the primary this year, you know, we did a great job in 2018, but after the primary, we started looking around. Oceanside has 30% Republican registration in the city, but the Republicans have a super majority. Our climate action plan is weak. Our buildings we got sprawl developments going up everywhere. We have a lack of safety in the buildings that we're doing. We have like high-rise buildings, but we don't have a ladder truck for the fire truck downtown. It's in the valley, so it takes 10 minutes to get there. So it's just the process and the thinking. And then when I actually met with about 13 groups, like 7 churches and 4 other groups in the community, and they weren't voting for any other folks that we were going to be working for. And once I realized that, it was like, okay, we're going to lose this election. And that's when I decided, you know, I had to talk to my wife, because, you know, if mama ain't on board, that train is not leaving the station. And once she was okay with it, we put a team together, did some evaluation, ran some numbers, because, you know, I don't like running to lose. And so we put the numbers together. We figured, what if you don't get help from the Democratic Party? Can we win without the without the full-throated party support. We ran the numbers and we said, yeah, we can do it. And then what about the labor movement? Well, if I get the Democratic Party, don't get the labor piece, it can still be done. Couldn't really do it without both of them because you got that, and then you're leaving the community by themselves. But recently, like last week, we got the San Diego Labor Council endorsement, which brings with it the support. We have about a 15% union density in Oceanside, so we start there. Not all of them are Democrats because we are reaching out. Whoever's elected is the mayor for the entire city. So we have put a plan together. We're working through the process. We've literally, we have a texting program because we found that you had to shift how you campaign now. We're not knocking on doors. So you got to be able to call, email, text, and when you do get outside, it's got to be a social distancing type of thing. So you limit the numbers you can have. So we've been working.
Okay. Well, Rob, tell the folks a little bit about your background and how what's have you done in your past that would prepare you to be the leader of the big city of Oceanside?
Well, Oceanside, third largest city in the county, by the way. I'm gonna let everybody know that. They think little small town Oceanside. We're number 3 behind San Diego and Chula Vista. So just want to throw that out there to give my city some props.
Shout out, yeah.
All right. So no, I have in my 30 plus years as a nuclear operator at San Onofre, you talk about the city council and the mayor focus on public safety. Well, we focus on safety in my 30 plus years at San Onofre. I've got 2 reactor operator licenses because there was 2 different vintage of plants. But more than that, during the time I was there, I literally trained as a firefighter. Hated the training, have a lot of respect for them because I come home all bruised up. That's not the kind of work I want to do. So I have the public safety piece with that part, but more than that, as a reactor operator or an operator at the plant, we also have to qualify as emergency director. So the public safety piece, the emergency director has to literally take all the information and figure out how we're going to solve this problem. So the public safety piece is just from work, but with regard to leadership, with regard to working with, because the mayor and the city council have to process information and make decisions. And so I've spent 15 years with the Public Utilities Commission as a diversity council, where in the era of Prop 209, we had to work and find innovative ways to work with utilities and literally force that with procurement and hiring. I was co-chair of the employment committee, so we had to force companies or come up with ways that they see the benefit to do outreach and recruitment and those other things. And a quick shout out for Prop 16, by the way, to repeal Prop 209, which will make that work a lot easier. So I have that background. We spent 15 years doing that. So I have an access of working with utilities. Plus, as president of my local union and a union member for 31 years, I've had the opportunity to not only participate in contract negotiations. In the last, I think, 4 or 5 contracts, I've been the lead negotiator, which means I am regular old Rob and regular old folks going up against a few $100 an hour union busting attorneys and corporate law, but it taught me that you needed to make sure you understood. You need to understand what you're actually going after. You have to be able to poll your folks and understand what's important. But you also need to be able to understand how benefits work. You need to understand how there's a pot of money. The question now is, how do we divvy it up? And what is your leverage? And so the process of negotiations and recognizing that for me, the best agreements are the ones that neither side is happy with, but both sides can live with. So that's another piece. And then the one thing that I think, as far as for mayor, that I really think is probably one of the most important pieces is that, one, I recognize my life is good. I recognize how blessed I am. And in doing that, I've been engaged in my community. I'm really focused on the fact that somebody gave me a chance. And as knucklehead as I was, I'm just glad we didn't have all these cell phone cameras when I was growing up, because some of the stuff we got into would cause me not to have to run for office. So, but it was about giving back to our community, working with community organizations, creating consensus around issues, and then making them happen. So that and some other things like working with, I ran the training program for Edison. We actually got a degree program with Maricosta College, an energy technology degree program, as a way to get people ready so they're not just hiring from the Navy. So there's it's a layered group of qualifications, and just caring about. I'm retiring here, man. This is where I want to be. I'm 7 miles from the beach. I like being able to go down there and just, I don't even have to get in the water. It's just the relaxation of being at the ocean. So I think I think I'm ready. A lot of people had to really have the conversations with, but I think what we have, and I always say we, that's another thing I have to work on. You know, they tell you, oh, when you run for politics, you got to say I. Well, for me, that's part of the problem. I can tell you all the stuff I did, but nothing I've done or accomplished could have been done without consensus, without connecting people. Malcolm Gladwell has a book and he talks about connectors. And so you have to bring the right people together and get them to see why they benefit by working together as opposed to working individually. So all of those things kind of brought it home, and we think, it's going to be tough, but
Rob, where, with everything that's needed in Oceanside, where do you see the greatest impact that you're going to make in what particular area, and how are you prioritizing that?
Well, for me, you have to have a short-term, long-term strategy. The short-term strategy is we're going to have to address the fact that we have a pandemic, and we have people and not just in Oceanside, but up here, who are really trying to push to open, not realizing that if people don't feel safe, they're not going to patronize your business. And so we have to, one, make sure that we are connected with the county and the state officials that are giving us the science and the data we need to make the plan. We need to be working on a plan, and I haven't seen it because I don't hear from the city on a regular basis. I had to go and find the Twitter feeds and other stuff to find out what was going on with the city because it wasn't overly present. So we need to make sure we're ready to help our local businesses get going. We need to make sure that our schools have what they need. One of the things I want to do just for the schools and the businesses is municipal broadband. We sent kids home that don't have internet and told them, well, we're going to be online learning. And so let's think about that. So we need to start looking at how we deal with the pandemic from a global perspective. Our homeless population, we need to address that just because of the humanity of the situation. And so it's more dire for them during the pandemic because you can get more spread because they don't have the washing stations. They don't have the ability to do that. So I would start with the pandemic with a focus on looking long-term at how we address some of these issues. Oceanside is a bedroom community. So when you start looking at the budget, 50% of our revenue comes from property taxes. So our drop in revenue wasn't as rapid as most of the other cities. So we're in a pretty good spot to start from. So we shore up what the businesses need, make sure we give them the support. They have the PPE, deal with the state and local authorities to get that done. And you have to be the bully pulpit person for what we want to do. Oceanside should be a destination city. We have a transit hub right there. One of the things I'm looking at is people come to Oceanside and they go to the beach, then they go home. I want you to spend your dinner time in Oceanside. So making it a destination city means we need to shore up our nightlife, our restaurants, and things like that. So how do you do that? You have to begin to now make sure that the economic development group is including the people who are here. We need to, and then you can a lot of the things are layered as well. We have a big resort hotel coming in, but we don't have an agreement that we do local hotel restaurant management training for the people, the high school that's like less than a half mile from that hotel. So you shore those things up with our colleges and our schools so that now people are walking to work. What does that do? If you're making minimum wage, your car is probably one of those ones causing the greenhouse gas emission problem because it ain't a new one. And so you do those little things, and you believe in your city. You bring people together. You make sure that the plans we're putting out, we have buy-in by the residents. because yes, we want the tourists, but the residents have to believe in it. And you have, I mean, we have to show people we believe in Oceanside. And that's, man, that's why I'm running, because I think if we focus on what we need to do, let people know we have to make tough decisions and don't leave out the poorest amongst them in those decisions, and let those who have it say, look, you got to give some of that up so that we can take care of these folks, so we're not having to pay on the other end. You start bringing people together, I think we have a good path for that. And long term, we really need to start looking at how we deal with our climate issues. Because you're talking about transit. Imagine, here's the scenario I tell people. Imagine a rail down to 15. And so the traffic on the 15 going to San Diego, I mean, you go all the way to Temecula. And that's where you make sure, as a representative of Sandag, you're able to bring people together who are talking about, yes, this won't happen in my 4 years in office, but we need to get it in the queue and get it going, because now if I have that, I can deal with my housing issues, because now I can do higher density mixed use places around the transit hub so people are out of their cars, and we got them off the freeways. So I just think you have to have a more global perspective, with a recognition that you can't do everything today, but you should start planning today. You should not wait to plan.
Quick question.
All right.
Oceanside has been traditionally a military town with large Camp Pendleton. What's the relationship between Oceanside and the military with Camp Pendleton? How does that impact your finances and stuff?
Well, the city, years ago, it was mostly just a place for the military to hang out, and they did all the stuff. But they shifted that, where you still have military are in town with the housing and other things, but it's not just a quote unquote military town. We have a sports complex with big soccer fields. We've got a lot of other things downtown. Again, the move to make it a destination city. So it's not as high of an amount of our revenue. It's still significant because, again, you have a number of people who live and work at Camp Pendleton, but it's not, I don't have the exact number, but we brought that down and brought in more just general revenue from the general population. And
can you elaborate on what you mean by destination city? Because that has multiple meanings.
Right. When I say a destination city, one, I want start with our residents, with over 50, 60 some odd % of our residents that work commute. And so I want them to not have to stop somewhere else to grab dinner, because we have good options for that. I want them to know that I don't want to have to go, I love San Diego, man, but I don't want to have to go to Balboa to see a play. We need to include our arts in what we're doing. We also need to start looking at how we do our shopping. If we want a car, we go to Carlsbad. We want to go, we want a mall, we go to Carlsbad. Or if we want to other things, you go to Vista. I mean, Costco is in Vista. So we have to rethink the destination piece from people coming to the beach. A destination city is one where they don't go home. They come, they get a room, they spend the night, they hang out. It's a place where I can go to a movie or a play or just have dinner and relax. So destination city is one where when I need a weekend away, I don't have to go to LA. I'm going to Oceanside. And so I'm planning on bringing some of that San Diego revenue on the train up to Oceanside and let them know that this is a place they can hang out. Oceanside can be a place to hang out because it's beautiful, man. We don't just have a beach. We have a harbor. So you can do boat tours. You can do all of those other things. It's got a lot going for it. And we're looking at our agriculture area, to where it's agritourism is one of the things they're talking about as well. So we have a lot of options. We've got a couple of wineries, we've got all the breweries, but we need to upscale it so that people know where you're going. I'm going to Oceanside, man.
Rob, I think you're right. I think Oceanside in the past has not had the greatest PR, public relations, and that it's a beautiful city, like you say, and it's halfway basically between LA and San Diego.
Exactly.
Say, if a lot of folks out of LA go straight to say, we drive right past Oceanside, we got off that big old freeway, that long stretch. And when Oceanside, we're almost to San Diego. So yeah, if you can, up the image. I think Oceanside needs that image that says Oceanside. That is, it's a seaside place where you can hang out and have a good time. Like you say, someplace and upgrade your hotels and stuff,
Yep.
and music venues, jazz concerts and stuff. Yeah, Oceanside could be the bomb.
It's no longer considered a transient city
Exactly.
because, you know, with the
Exactly.
military, you have a large transient population. And so now I understand exactly. And, you know, again, San Diego, their big deal, of course, is their travel and tourism budget,
Hmm.
one of the major revenue generators. And, you know, of course, if Oceanside decided to take on that mantra, there's a lot of opportunity there, I
Right.
think.
Well, and I don't, and I tell people, I joke with them about we're taking theirs from San Diego, but the reality is the tourism industry has so much room for expansion because as we start transitioning through this virus, you're going to need a place where you can be outside, where people want to go. And you look at our biotech industry, you look at the other sciences and the industries we're bringing to Oceanside, a lot of those folks live in Temecula and Hemet. So we work through our housing issue where we can get them to be able, affordable housing is housing you can afford. So that means you need to be making a certain amount of revenue to be able to do that. So we want to start looking at our housing stock. Our land use plan hasn't been updated since, I mean, the last one I saw was 1986. So we need to figure out this is what we're going to do in Oceanside so that developers know when they come, this is what we want to do. And we won't get into the fights that we're in now where developers are getting the zoning changed to do what they want to do. People are fighting over it and it's lawsuit after lawsuit. We need a plan. I just believe if you properly prepare, then you can now, you can go out and really feel good about being the champion for your city. And that's what the mayor's job is. He needs to be the one that is champion why you want to come to Oceanside.
Well,
Is yours a standalone ticket or is there someone else on the ticket with you?
No, ours it's an individual ticket. There's two other seats open in Oceanside for the council. So literally, you can change the face of the council in this election. But I'm an individual person running. And what's interesting about Oceanside, there is no primary, there is no campaign contribution limit. So you know I can't be on here without letting people know that they can go to Rob Howard, the number 4 mayor.com, make a contribution because
Wait,
I,
say it again now. We
okay,
want to make sure it gets out there.
all right, you know, you go www, right? Then it's Rob Howard, the number 4 mayor.com. And if you Google just Rob Howard for mayor, you can find us on, you can get our website, Instagram, Twitter. I've got young people working with me that are telling me that people really watch the stuff. And so they're training me while I'm working with them on how government works. It's been a really good thing of bringing people together, finding out what they're good at, and then we're going to work because we're working, man. I refuse to allow any other candidate to outwork.
all right, well,
I
Rob,
hear
you
you.
do this. You let everyone know that you can watch this show on GOD Radio 1 on YouTube. So that all your supporters come. We had a great time today, uh, and we wish you the best. I think I've known you for years. You're a great guy. You got intelligence, you got drive, you got enthusiasm, and the city of Oceanside is lucky to have you. Now, one
Right.
last thing, as a golfer, I want you all to work on that Oceanside Muni Golf Course
I
because,
tell you
of
what,
course, I think there's a lot of leisure time up there. So y'all tighten that course up, and you'll get some folks from San Diego coming up to the play.
all right, well, that I'm gonna have to take that in and deal with that. We have a few courses up here, so I'm gonna make sure I get you personally engaged on everything we have. So we come up and stay. You do Oceanside Muni on Monday, and then on Tuesday we'll have you do Arrowwood, and on Wednesday we'll have another one, and Thursday we'll have you come up because you know I want you here for the whole week.
We can do that. We can
Yeah.
do that. Well, we want to thank you, Rob. You've been a great guest, and we enjoyed the show. Everyone, you heard, go to Rob Howard for mayor.com, contribute. I must admit, I contributed. I I sent you a check because I think you're the man for the job. So I put out some of my hard-earned money for you,
Well, I
and I
appreciate
wish
it.
others would do that too, because it
All
takes
right.
money to win.
We'll be looking for it. Everyone, there's room for everybody, man. There's room for everybody.
Well,
All right,
Michael,
God Radio 1 on
that's right.
YouTube.
Michael, great seeing you again.
Always, Douglas.
Yes, sir. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another edition of Law and Money. And I'm working on getting a very, very special guest. I'll let you all know in the future, but if I pull it off, we'll have a big one coming up soon.
Kamala Harris.
Similar, similar. We'll see. So everybody have a great evening, and we'll see you next time on Law and Money.
All right, Rob. Good to see you, my friend.
You too. Great. Appreciate it.